with that. I'm really excited for this call. So let me back up and start by saying, so Natalie's been with Zaya basically since the beginning. And the first time that I met Natalie was actually in Chicago. She was speaking, and I can't remember what your rank was at that time at the Chicago Mini Summit. There was 30 people there. I feel like you might have been like senior director or just an executive.
Yep, I was, one of those. Yep.
Okay. And I remember, like, I didn't know how I felt about, like, being there, and I had just left my first son. It was, like, my first time away from him, and Natalie got up there, and she had just kind of shared her story and, like, what Zaya had done for her up until that point, which wasn't a real long time at that point, maybe a year, and I remember she, like, started crying, and then I, like, lost it, because in that moment, I realized that this wasn't just gonna be something that was, like, $200 a month, that this was gonna be something that was going to change my life, and it was, like, in that moment that I decided, like, I committed, and I drove home from Chicago. I'm from Wisconsin that weekend, and it was just so impactful to see both the business side of Natalie, but also, like, the very human side, and one thing that I really respect about her business is that she does have balance. Like, you would think somebody who is at the tippity top of the organization, which is incredible that she's on our call right now, would just be like 24/7. Now, don't get me wrong, like, Natalie works harder than probably anybody I know in Zaya, but she also has a balance with her husband Jordan and her 4 kids. And so there's just this really beautiful balance that I've always really respected, of hard work and still, like, appreciating life and the opportunities that Zaya's given. So one thing that I had asked Natalie to share just a couple tidbits about tonight is revenue generating opportunities, or, like, what in the business is important to focus on, like, what's going to generate revenue, and what do we need to go back to just to keep our business moving and keep our business like, fresh. She's really good. But I've seen her you did a lot of lives in Zaya Life about what are some things that you can go back on and focus that are revenue generating. Like, what can you go back on and focus, even if it's like an hour a day or 30 minutes a day? What are those things that are going to move your business forward? Because obviously she's done that. And I feel like you've got a really good framework for, okay, like, if I need to move my business forward, these are the things that I can fall back on and know that I can simply do consistently to make a difference. So that's how I know Natalie. And she's, like, always willing to jump on our calls. She's always willing to share advice. And I know, I mean, there's 80,000 reps who are, like, trying to, like, get Natalie's time, and she's here with 22 of us tonight, or however many people are going to be on this call. So thank you. But with that, do you have a couple tidbits to share before we all have to, we usually try to keep these to like 20 or 30 minutes. We call them power hours, but what do you got for us?
Yeah.
I just want to, like, learn. I just want to soak it all in again.
Oh, I love Leah. She is amazing. I got to know her, I feel like, even better at that executive dinner a couple of years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with her. She's amazing. She's funny. She's so hardworking. And you guys are in such good hands with her. Like, I am inspired by her. I am inspired by her drive and her work ethic. And so I hope you guys just know that she is such a great leader. Like, you are following someone who is worth following. So she's amazing. She's so sweet. And I know that there's a handful of things that really do make a difference in your business. First, I just want to mention that we are not your typical, when you think of a 9-to-5 job. And I think that is honestly probably one of the biggest shifts that has to happen in our minds as Zaya reps is, I might show up and I might not make any money today, but that doesn't mean that my efforts won't compound and that I'll get paid in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Too often we have that employee mentality where we think, well, I showed up, I'm supposed to get paid. And that is not how this works. This is not a business that is built on, I showed up today, I get a paycheck today. Everything you do is getting paid on the back end. You very rarely get paid on the front end, maybe unless you're at like an expo or an event where you're like selling the clothes person to person and you're immediately getting that cash. So the biggest revenue generating habits are probably things you guys have heard time and time again. The first one is parties. We are a party plan company. And I know that there's a lot of people on social media that are like, I'm not going to do parties. I'm not going to do messaging. I'm not going to do this or that. And I think there is a place for attraction marketing. I think there is a place for treating this like an online boutique. But I'm not going to sit back and hope that my video, my reel is going to attract somebody to me. I would rather take my business into my hands and go and do that messaging, go and build those relationships. It does scare me a little bit that so many Zaya reps follow these accounts, especially on Instagram, that are like the anti-hey girl. And I'm not a big fan of like the cold, like, hey girl, have you tried, Zaya's leggings or whatever like that. I think we need to come from a place of serving and providing a true solution to people's problems. So when you see someone who hikes a lot, you can message her and say, oh my gosh, that hike you just did looked legit hard. What leggings did you wear? Or what activewear do you wear to hold up with how much you hike? That is coming from a place of genuine questions, genuine wanting to like find out like what brands does she use? Maybe she hates her brand. Maybe she's looking for better leggings. And that allows for that relationship to take place. I'm not a huge fan of this, like, hey, I'm going to do reels and I'm going to attract exactly the person that I want through hashtags and this and that. Can you? Yes, but it's a long game. Okay. So you're going to do that and you can't expect that you're going to have somebody find you in 2 days and want to join your team or have a party or purchase from you. So you have to be aware of how social media works and how your efforts are going to result in revenue down the road, right? So parties are where it's at. You need to make sure that you're closing parties. You need to make sure your team is closing parties. And if you don't know how to see how many parties your team is closing, you just need to go into your back office, run your downline. Up in the right-hand corner, you'll see an envelope, and next to it, you'll see a piece of paper with an X in it. You click the X, and it creates a CSV file. When it goes to that CSV file, you're going to scroll all the way over, and you're going to look for the column that has PTY CNT. That is going to tell you who's closed, how many parties so far that month, and how many parties your team has closed in total. Let's say you're a team of 5 and your team has closed 5 parties this month. I would go in and I would actually look from January, February, March, and I would see, hey, how many parties have we been averaging per month? Let's say the average has been 8. That provides an opportunity for you to teach and train your team on parties. Let's close parties. When we close a party, do we talk to the person about becoming a rep? Do we talk to her about the opportunities around the business? So parties allow for us to grow our business in a way that online boutique attraction marketing doesn't necessarily hit. Now, parties might be tricky to get people to host a party. They might be, people might be partied out. That's where you have to offer VIP links or keeping them in your group, your VIP group, okay? I'm a huge fan of parties. The more parties you're doing, the bigger your business is going to be. So I'm a huge fan of the party plan. There's a reason why we're set up that way. And if you don't love that, you need to figure out how to make that work and that you're going to be here for the long game. You might be waiting around a little bit longer for those reps to come and join you. You might be waiting a little while for those sales. So just keep that in mind. Revenue generating habits is also posting on social media. So parties is like priority. And then posting and doing that social media work, right? Are you showing up every day? Are you using your stories at least, having something in your stories? Are you engaging your audience? Are you giving them something that's valuable? I love Bob Heilig. He's actually doing a 5-day course this week on growing your team. And he is very aligned with my thinking on growing and especially like team building, finding new customers, all that stuff. It's always coming from a place of service and helping provide service to the people that you are trying to have purchase, party, and join with you. So I love social media, but the cool thing with social media is, unlike other people, we don't have to show up every day. So I actually make it a point to show that I have a very thriving business and I'm still not showing up every day. I'm like every other day. My stories are pretty consistent. But you guys, that's the beauty of this business. Social media doesn't own you. Your business should be able to continue to grow without having to be on social media. If that is not the case, then you don't have a business. You are a slave to social media. I mean, you look at any of these influencers, they don't have a business. They are owned by social media. And if Facebook shuts down, if Instagram shuts down, they're hosed. We at least can still email, text. We still have all that information in our back office. So we are not controlled by a third party company, basically. Granted, a lot of our business takes place on there, but we can be and do whatever we want, which is really nice. The next revenue generating habit is messaging. Okay. Now, again, a lot of people are like, I'm so anti cold messaging. That's fine. You can be anti cold messaging, but how are you meeting people? This is a relationship business. And I can tell you from personal experience, I would rather send 20 cold messages than what I used to have to do before social media. And I would go walk around grocery stores. I would go walk around gas stations. I would go anywhere and try to meet someone, get their phone number and their name, and talk to them about the business opportunity. It was like painful. I hated it. I hated it so much. So I love social media because it's like, hey, your leggings are wicked cute. Or, oh my gosh, the way that you work out like every day, you're so consistent. I love following you. You're so inspiring. That is so much easier than just seeing some girl in the grocery store and being like, I'm going to go push my grocery cart over to her and hopefully she'll be nice and want to talk to me. Okay. So I am all for messaging. You have to message. And I know a lot of people right now, there's kind of a buzz around Amber Tillinghast. And I will tell you why. That girl messages literally probably all day long. And she gets told no so many times. A couple weeks ago, she was like, Natalie, I have no parties for April. And she was like freaking out. And I was like, you'll get them. And she's like, I had to send like 50 messages. I got 20 no's. And I heard from 2 people that said yes. Okay. So even the people that we're watching that were like, oh my gosh, how is she being so successful? It's doing the work, right? Oh, oh man, the insurance calls sound even worse than um, the having to send cold messages through Zaya. So yeah. So there was something that was said today, and I can't remember. Someone said it in the chat on the Sam Higginson call, and they said, yeses grow your business, but no's grow you. So when you're told no, you need to learn how to overcome that objection. You should try to get 3 no's every time you talk to someone. Hey, do you love your activewear? I see that you hike all the time. And she's like, yeah, I totally love it. Oh, that's awesome. What brand do you buy? Lululemon. Oh, awesome. Those prices are so crazy. Are you cool with those prices? No, not really. Oh, well, have you ever heard of Zaya Active? No. Oh, I would love to have you try the brand. Okay. Or she's like, no, I don't want to try anything new. I'm okay. Well, I would love to have you join my VIP community. It's on Facebook. I run promos and specials, and maybe down the road, you'll be open to trying the brand. So I just always try to get them at least into my community if we've gone through the no's, right? Okay. The next one is following up. You have to be following up. You have to be checking in with your customers. You have to be following up with people who have told you no to being a rep, no to hosting a party, no to this or that or the other. Like, you need to know how to follow up with those people. And that's a process in itself. I always just try to ultimately, no matter what their responses are, get them into my VIP group, because they're going to sit in there long enough. And I'm going to love on them so hard that eventually they're either going to buy from me, they're going to host a party, or they're going to rep with me. One of those things is going to happen, because I'm going to love the crap out of them. And they're going to be like, gosh, she's so annoying. I guess I'm going to have try these clothes that she keeps talking about because she really loves them. Okay. And then the last thing that doesn't seem like it's a revenue generating habit is personal development. You are going to not feel like building this business about 90% of the time. Every day, you're going to wake up and you're not going to want to send messages. You're not going to want to do the party. You're not going to want to enroll someone. You're not going to want to do the work. And how you get over that is through personal development. I can only be so motivating before you, as a rep, you have to learn how to motivate yourself. And the best way to become self-motivated is to turn on something personal development. And it doesn't have to be hours worth of personal development. It can be 10 to 15 minutes while you're driving, while you're doing the dishes, while you're folding clothes, while you're nursing a baby, while you're going to the bathroom, while you're sitting in your car at a stoplight as you're driving to work. 10 minutes, and then literally like set a timer, 10 minutes, and then turn it off and move on through your day. And I'm going to tell you, it is going to motivate you. It is going to make you want to do something in your business that day. So those are my biggest tips to create revenue. I'm not going to say that recruiting is going to bring you money. I'm not going to say that parties are even going to bring you money necessarily, but these things consistently, and you have a long game mentality, they will generate income for you. So hopefully that was helpful, Leah.
So mic drop. Mic drop. Do you have questions? If you do, please unmute yourself and ask them if you have questions. Natalie, every time I hear this stuff, like I've heard it before and it's all so true. Like, and one of the things that you said that stuck out is kind of in this like space right now of like, is your upline telling you to send messages? Like, no, like don't do it. And like, there's all these reels about this stuff and you're kind of like, well, but like you still have to get the work done, right? Like you kind of still have to show up. And so it kind of jives with when somebody's like, well, I have a goal to hit director in my first 2 months, but like I want everything to happen naturally. Like I want people to come to me. And I'm like, if you can figure that out, like call me, because it does require effort. And I think what you find is that people are like complimented when you reach out to them and you ask them. It's not salesy. It's not spammy. Like if somebody reaches out to me, like there's this girl in my hometown she does scout and seller and she's got a ton of success and she reaches out to me like once a month. And I'm like honored that she thinks that I would be so good at it. Like, yeah, like I'd probably crush it, but you know, I got something else going on. So I love that you said that because there is a fine balance between like the genuineness, but also doing the work. So I love that. Parties, obviously, like we know it's just such a good reminder. You'd rather take your business into your own hands. So good. Come from a place of service. Social media doesn't own you. Yes. And then, okay, you always have good ones going on. What is your current best book or podcast recommendation?
So I'm really big on, if I'm going to be spending my time in personal development, I want it to directly influence and affect my business. So Bob Heilig has free podcasts. Okay. And I love his podcasts. I'm sure Ray Hagdon does. I'm sure some of these other bosses do that are involved in these other businesses. But I want you to be super, super careful who you're choosing podcast information from. You know, if you're listening, like one of the speakers that we had at Summit, she's very anti-hey girl, like messaging. And I'm like, okay, but why are you doing this business if you were so successful in your other business? So I always have like kind of a tongue in cheek, like, hold up, like, you know, if you have done this business at all, you should recognize that you actually need both sides of it to creating those relationships. So just be careful, like really make sure that they, you know, one, were successful in their business or they're still successful in their business. And that they're actually giving you tips relating to your industry. There's one thing to be listening to like positive mental attitude stuff. but then you don't know how to integrate that into your Zaya business, which is what I love about the Bob Heilig stuff, is because he gives very concrete things that I can listen to and I can go and implement into my Zaya business. Like, oh, I need to come from a place of service. Okay, when I message someone, I'm not going to say, hey, have you tried Zaya? Now, that's not a bad thing. You can definitely get away with that. But if I'm looking at someone who's working out all the time, who's a runner, my question should be, hey, do you love your activewear that you're working out in?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're like, yeah, it's okay, or yeah, it's fine, start developing that relationship with them. Start having those conversations with them and just loving on them, right? And trying to serve them and give them like, hey, I rep for a premium activewear brand that doesn't cost a fortune. I would love to have you try Zaya. Would you be interested in like my first time customer promo code? So there's just lots of ways to, you know, to learn from the podcast. So Bob Heilig's podcasts are my favorite. Direct Sales for Dummies is an awesome book. It's a little old and it's not outdated, but it's just a little old, but it's still very, very relevant. And then Get Over Your Damn Self. She will give you the cojones to like, she'll make you bulletproof. Like she has some really great, like just posturing and stance, like when you're talking to people.
And that
So
one
yeah.
That one was Get Over Your Damn Self.
Mm-hmm.
If not,
Yep. And then there's Dare to Lead and Leadership, Atomic Habits. Like Atomic Habits is good, but again, it's not necessarily something that you could read and you can incorporate into your business. It's more that positive mental what am I trying to say? Positive mental book that's going to like help you to like be a better person overall. But like Direct Sales for Dummies, she talks about parties. And she talks about what to do in a party. And the focus of a party should be on the hostess and on the guests. And if the guests know the hostess is getting goodies and prizes, you should probably love on those guests and give them some goodies and prizes, And so there's like different ways to incorporate the information that you're gleaning from these books and resources and start doing some trial and error. Like, you know what? I'm going to give away a free pair of leggings if the party hits $600 or $1,000, and I'm going to use my rewards to make it happen. Like, there's so many ways to take what they teach you and be like, how can I work this into Zaya?
100%. So. I will say one of the, when you spoke, I don't remember which one we were at, you said if there's like somebody on your team who is like recruiting, like I think this was the space it was in. Like we went through my downline. I think you actually took me through my downline, and there was like somebody who recruited like 4 or 5 people over the course of like 6 months, but none of those people had recruited anybody. And I remember you saying there's probably a lack of personal development. Like that's probably a sign of not having enough personal development. And I took that into my own business, and I'm like, I don't really want to read a damn book. Like I would rather send messages and do the things that I know are going to like make money and grow. But I started doing it, and it is a game changer. And my direct upline, Ellie, is a huge personal development person. And then you start to incorporate it and you're like, oh, like this stuff really does make a difference. Like it really makes a difference.
It does.
Even if it's 10 minutes a day.
Yeah, and Bob's stuff is actually super short. His actual program, like if you were to get into it, is pretty good. And in my opinion, it's worth it. Especially where like I don't feel like I give personal development as a leader. I will give motivation and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But with programs and people out there who have those systems in place, I would rather plug my team into them and say, go learn, do the personal development. I'll coach you and help you to fine tune what needs to be fine tuned. And then that allows me to be able to coach more people than less, trying to do a personal development program too.
For sure. And you guys, there is posted at For Sure and Grow and Celebrate, and I think in some of the other team pages on here, a link to Bob's free 5-day virtual training that started today. And he does have recordings available. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, just shoot me a text or message me and I can get you tagged in that post. But that's a free 5-day training that he's doing right now. So it might be a good way for you to kind of get a feel of like who he is and what his content is and decide if that is a mutual fit for you and your business. But do you guys have any questions for Natalie? I know it's like kind of intimidating, and it's also like there was so much good stuff there that you just want to walk away and soak it in. But if you have any, now is a great time.
I do.
Yay!
Now,
Hello. Hi, Natalie. I have to say, one, like, I love following you on Instagram because you're like the most real. I just feel like I can relate to you the most. Like, just, I don't know. You're very relatable. Sometimes I think like everything is so big. Like we always see the big, huge things that everybody's doing. And you're just like, yeah, I'm just going through life and doing this on the side. But anyways, my question is, what would be your top things for your team? So like your first line, like what do you make sure you do every single week for your first line to make sure they're doing what they need to do?
So that's tricky because I do not force this business on my front line as far as like I don't set specific goals for them. What I will do is I will put out challenges. I send a weekly email with either videos or podcasts or things that I think will benefit them. But I'll also do challenges as well. So, for example, I did like a bingo for last month or the month before, I can't remember, and they had to complete like each box was like $5. I'd give them $5, and you can scale this as far as like money and prizes, but like one of them was I'm trying to think now what some of them were, like sell a kids item on new release date, or like sell 5 pairs of leggings. So if they sold 5 pairs of leggings during the month, they could check off that box. And then if they finished like the whole thing and every box was X'd off, they got like, I think like $150 or $200, right? Because to me, that helped them to have like, okay, I need to listen to 10 minutes of personal development, or I need to watch this training, or I need to do these things to help them to start getting some of those good habits. So I don't necessarily give them specific things that they should be doing each week because I have so many different people in my front line. Some of them are crushing it, and then some of them are personal use, like they just want to buy. So I share podcasts, I share quotes, I share tips, and I just make sure they always know what the new releases are. And and I do tell them, like, you need to be booking parties. You should be doing a party. Like, you should be messaging. So I'm kind of a hands-off leader. Some people aren't, and they want to put those things out for their frontline and their teams, and that's totally fine. My biggest thing is they know what their goals are with Zaya, and I'm just going to let them go and work. Mm-hmm. And then I check in with them, see how they're doing, right? Like, once a month, hey, how are things going? What can I help with? How are you feeling about things? If they're like, I can't get any parties booked. Okay, how many messages are you sending, or who are you messaging? What responses are you getting? Mm-hmm. Can you screenshot your conversations for me so I can see what is being said? And then I basically just troubleshoot with them. And if they want to have a Zoom call with me, I'll have a Zoom call with them. Because again, the most important part of your business is your own business, your 3x4, not what they're doing. Because you can't control that, right? So I don't know if I'm really answering your question. Hopefully I am. But my focus is actually on me sponsoring 3 people, hitting 2,500 in sales, and closing 4 parties every month still.
Yeah, it was actually perfect because that's kind of the mentality I take too. I don't feel like I push very much, and I've always wondered, like, should I push a little bit more? But that's just not me. Like, I let them tell me what they want to do, and I give them the information on how to do what I'm doing, and then it's up to them to do it or not. And sometimes I just wonder if I'm not pushing hard enough for the ones that don't do it. But I know, like, you can only do so much. But it feels good to hear it from you that's that's the right way to go. So
yeah, I mean, you can definitely, there are some things, when someone's starting out and as you're working with them those first few months, making sure they know, like, these are the habits. Like, you should be sending messages. You should be trying to get parties. You should be posting to social media. But the biggest thing that I try to pay attention to is what they're doing. So like, if they're over 1,000 PV, like, I'm going to be messaging them, telling them like, oh my gosh, you've already sold 1,000 PV. Like, do you want to sponsor this month? How are things going with sponsoring? Let's help you hit the 1 by 1,000. You know, more of that kind of stuff where I'm giving them that recognition versus me being like, hey, you need to be hitting 2,500 PV and you need to sponsor 3 people this month. Like, why haven't you done it? That's not my style. And maybe it works for other people, but I am more, I'm going to love on you. I'm going to serve you. I'm going to make sure, you know, I'm here. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe I could do things, you know, like, I'm always learning. So, but that's how I've done it. I just love on them. I try to be their friend, and make sure they know I'm always available for them, whatever that is.
I think that's such good advice, because you can, and this is vulnerable for me to share, but last year I recruited few people and my sales sucked compared to my first 2 years, because I kind of got into that mode of trying to be like doing all these big grand things and motivating like my first level and doing all these things. And what I noticed at the end of the year was that my personal business like halted. Like, it did okay, but then when these big opportunities for growth come and you don't have those seeds planted and you haven't done the work leading up to those big moments of growth, you're like, oh. And the other thing, which is kind of vulnerable to say, is that sometimes like when you put all of that effort into like, oh, I like went into my team chat and like nobody responded, or like nobody wanted to do a live, or you can sometimes end up feeling really disappointed. And that's hard. So like Natalie's saying, when you continue to come from like a place of service and just love and not have a lot of expectation, right? I mean, that's kind of been my experience with it too, is like, just let people know that you're there and you're
Yep.
willing to like recognize and do those things. I love the bingo thing though. I totally want to do the bingo thing, because those are small fun wins. It's not like you do all these things and then you know, like you can like have small wins throughout the month.
Yeah. I'll share it with you. It's
Awesome.
And you can, it's super not anything fancy. Nothing I do is fancy. I am
Come
not.
on, Natalie. Okay,
Like,
the last thing I have to end with before we go. Does anybody else have a question?
hopefully that helped Michelle. Hopefully.
Okay, this was awesome. Jesse, I remember seeing a training by Natalie, said if you see your reps crushing with PV and not recruiting, a lot of times they need personal development. That was so helpful for me. Yes, we must have been on the same training, so I totally agree. Natalie, this was amazing. So good. We really appreciate your time. Hopefully you guys put some runs up while you were in the car, because you said you were getting slaughtered. But I have to end with this. It's one of my favorite things ever, when Michelle was saying that two things, when you're like so honest on your social media, which you are, like you're so real, which is incredible, because it makes people feel like, oh my gosh, it's a real human being on the other side of that phone. But Natalie used to do a bunch of lives from the warehouse on Wednesdays. She'd go and do lives like immediately with new items, like up until COVID. And then like you couldn't go in the warehouse. But I remember you saying, like, when you were trying on sports bras, you were like, I'm taking these babies to Bounce Town. And I'll never forget it. You were live in front of like thousands of reps, and Bounce Town happened. And then I just freaking love spending time with you. Remember the day that you were jogging and you were like in the middle of like a serious thing, and you're like talking to people on your Instagram, and all of a sudden like you hear all of this like noise and the camera's up in the air, and you see Natalie, like a close-up of her like rolling on the ground because you tripped. Do you remember that? Oh my gosh. And I just remember being like,
It's one of my highlights. My bubbles.
Is that a highlight?
It is.
Oh, you guys have to go look at her Instagram tonight. And it's not at all laughing at you. It's 100% like the other day I had 2 big wet marks on my shirt, and I'm like, oh my God, I just did a live in front of like all these people. But I just remember thinking like, this is real, and like this is an opportunity that like truly anybody like it just made it real. It made it comfortable. And And I feel like, Natalie, like I want to thank you for making this feel very safe, like safe and doable. And that's been something that I think has generated a lot of success for a lot of people.
Oh, well, thank you.
So,
It should be. It should be safe. It should be like the funnest thing that you do. Like if this is like a job, we're doing it wrong. Like this should be so much fun.
yes, and it is. All right, well, I will get this recording out